had a I was gonna say I had a dream, but actually it wasn't necessarily I had a dream, but I woke up in the middle of the night, and when I did, I had a download, and the phrase I got was Mary Magdalene, sacred balance. Mary Magdalene, sacred balance. And that was it. And I had nothing more with it at the time. But since I've had some more, energy of that coming together and deeper understanding, and some very naturally lined up synchronistic conversations with some of the people I've worked with around this kind of notion. In many of the other videos that I have recorded at this point, I think there is a central theme of divine union. And I imagine I've used that phrase repeatedly. And when I am speaking of that divine union in most of these recordings, I'm really talking about coming home to yourself and a sacred harmony, internal balance. This is not, you know, necessarily that I'm talking about an external divine union of a twin flame or a true love type of thing. I'm referencing in these videos, for example, one that is called Relationship to Self is the Foundation of All Other Relationships with Others. The divine union within your relationship to yourself, balancing your own energies. And I am very grateful to be able to have the training and experience that allows me to see the holistic coming together of the therapeutic modalities and clinical experience I have with the energy healing, intuitive gifts, channeling, psychic mediumship, and other people are experiencing that as well. As healing happens, the energy centers of your body are shifting. Of course, that makes sense, right? I think a lot of people don't quite grasp the energetic realness, the physics, the energetic component of emotions, of feelings. And we think about them as this notion that is outside of ourselves, this rather, I'm doing this because I'm thinking of like a little tissue paper wafting in the air, like whoop, a feeling, and drop it and it floats like outside of ourselves and something that's not energetic. So when I talk to people at times about body scanning and somatic work, what do you notice in your body with how and where this emotion shows up for you? Sometimes there's some stepping stones we have to take to get the person to be able to know what I'm talking about. They're like, I don't know what you mean. Like, where am I feeling this? I don't, it's a disconnection from the physicality and lived, the aliveness, I want to say, the energy of the emotionality. It lives in your body. And this is this concept of when emotions are not fully processed and moved through, and there becomes some stagnation, this is what people will speak to or refer to as an energetic block. The word emotion comes from the lexicon of emotion. Emotion, emotions. The E is energy, motion, in motion, energy in motion. Feelings are energy, like Albert Einstein's E equals mc squared. It doesn't just go away. And so, as people are doing some of the EMDR and holistic healing work with me, I've had times where they've said, oh, I'm noticing that I feel this anger right here, like in my, in kind of like the top of my gut, the bottom of my ribs. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense as to where you would feel that from the themes of massive disempowerment and learned helplessness, and and that's your solar plexus. That's the power center. So you're getting some pain in your upper abdomen, some indigestion, some liver issues, gallbladder issues, like that all shows up in that area. And it can heal. And so people are noticing improvements as they are healing the trauma, the emotions, the energy is shifting, and they're coming into a balance in their energy field, and their body is feeling better because of it. And so when I talk about divine union within and sacred balance, I had a client who was telling me about this lovely little way of thinking, this like phrase, almost like positive affirmations, I guess I'll say, that she uses, starting from the root chakra going all the way up to the seventh. And it is, I'm going to make it up because I can't remember it exactly, but you know, root chakra, it's like, I trust myself and I'm safe to live open and freely. And then sacral, I am a creator and a passionate being. Moving up to the solar plexus, I am empowered and free to make my own choices. I am loved and lovable and loving. I speak my truth with ease and clarity. I hold space for myself and I am in presence and awareness. I am a direct link to the divine essence and I'm divinely supported, for example. These sweet little affirmations she made that go together with the positive energy of each of the seven chakras. And I said, that's beautiful. I love it. And we were having a conversation that was very much around some intergenerational trauma with patriarchy, sexism, wounded feminine energy, and wounded masculine as well. And this healing work that extends intergenerationally and in her own trauma history. And I said, I have a question for you. When you think about feminine versus masculine energy on an energetic sense, you don't have to answer this right away, but think about for a minute. If I asked you to assign or depict with percentages, either masculine energy or feminine energy to each one of your chakras, what would that look like? Would there be a chakra that you say, this chakra is heavily defined by masculine energy, 90%? This chakra is heavily defined by feminine energy, 85%, right? What does that feel like to you? And just sit into a minute. And she immediately was like, oh yeah, I I have answers just coming up for that right away. I'm like, beautiful. And how balanced does it feel? Not very balanced. Say, okay, and that is a sign of internal energetic imbalance. We all have divine feminine energy, and we all have divine masculine energy. This is yin yang of life force energy at the heart of creation, and I am God energy, right? And when you have achieved sacred balance, ideally, what you would intuit about your chakra centers is that there is a very healthy, nearly equal sense of divine masculine and divine feminine energy working in synergy in each one of your chakras. And that is going to be a good indicator that you are at divine union within, that your energy centers are balanced. When you think about divine masculine energy, that is often symbolized by strength, focus, logic, action, decisiveness, giving. And divine feminine energy, you can think of that in terms of receptivity, emotional depth, wisdom, intuition, nurturing, flow, sacred surrender. So the root chakra is often characterized with, basic sense of trust. I'm supported. Grounding happens here. This is where we like anchor down and send roots out of your feet through imagination, intuition, to feel supported, safe, secure, anchored. And when I'm doing energy healing, I often get information here about someone's basic sense of safety and security, which will be things about finances as well, financial health, their sense of, do I have what I need to take care of myself today and tomorrow and the next day? And also it's energetic. So for example, I have worked with somebody who was very wealthy, set, good to go. And there was a lot of density in that root chakra. And this was historical energy that hadn't been cleared yet. There was a scarcity and poverty energy that never fully got processed and released and healed. And this was from childhood. And so all the information is coming to me. And when I afterwards shared that with the person, I said exactly that. In your root chakra, I get a sense that you have what you need and you are well set up and you know that. And yet there is a feeling of anxiety and concern, regardless, that you can't quite seem to shake, that's deeply connected to some poverty wounds from childhood. And the person was like, ding, 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 ding. I was like, amazing. It's amazing what these energy centers hold. It really is. And maybe I'll give a little example kind of like that for each one. So with that information of what that root chakra holds, think about the divine masculine and divine feminine. What creates a healthy flow there, right? When it comes to finances, do you want to be solely focused, decisive, action oriented, and logical? Or do you want to be, solely, and that would be the more masculine energy, or do you want to be solely nurturing, receptive, more in a state of passivity, emotional depth there? And if you're much more in one direction or the other, you're very likely to not be in a state of abundance, right? You need a mix, a balance of both of those divine feminine and divine masculine energies of, I'm decisive, I have an ability to be assertive, to make investments, to take action, to take some level of risk. And I also am able to be in my intuition, in a flow state, and receptivity is a big deal if you want to have a good place with financial health, right? And so there's an example of where we need union, we need balance of your divine feminine and masculine energy in that root chakra to be in a place of wholeness, wellness, health. Having this understanding that we each hold divine feminine and divine masculine energies, and to be really in a state of health and wellness and connection to our soul, to our divinity, and have our energy be flowing the way we deserve to. I think this is just a critical framework and understanding. And I wish for all people and also all children to be raised with this type of framework. You know, I think about the sexism and the passing down of that, you know, I don't think is intentional and just comes from wounded energies and our own potential imbalances. Some of the kind of like stereotypes or thoughts that come up in my mind are, you know, when a little boy is striking out at baseball and is really encouraged for slamming their helmet off the back of the dugout, and that is seen as a more appropriate expression versus being emotional, expressing emotions, having emotional depth, being self-aware, being introspective, sitting with it a little bit, being in a more passive receptivity place where there's allowance for the emotion to rise and fall, rather than to be squeezed, suppressed, and pushed up and out into an overly divine masculine energy, wounded divine masculine energy of aggression, control, dominance, insecurity. We're not doing kids any justice here. We're not doing kids any justice here, right? If we are not disrupting those patterns and those cycles and teaching children that they are made up of both of these energies, so they don't deny a part of themselves and become so imbalanced that they're just going to see manifestations of that imbalance in their external world and in the relationships that they end up engaging in, relational dynamics and karmic cycles that end up unfolding. And a similar thing for little girls. If we're teaching little girls to be too much in that wounded feminine energy of being self-sacrificial and not recognizing that it is okay to be assertive. Sometimes anger is rightful to be experienced, and as a female, experiencing anger and being angry is not offensive. That's not a behavioral issue to experience anger. You know, there's a difference between, of course, experiencing anger versus being offensive to someone. But I think, you know, we go too far in the direction of teaching girls to suppress that and to be too far into a nurturing energy at the expense of recognizing their own sacred balance. And so you have these two children who grow up with a lot of internalized sexism and energetic imbalances within themselves, as they have early on learned this part of myself seems to be accepted by the people around me, and this part does not. And opposite, this part of myself seems to be reinforced, and this part needs to be suppressed and hidden. we will become unhealthy. We're certainly not in divine union like that. And what will happen is the energy that we send out is like a magnet, right? The positive and negative side of a magnet that attract like this. So you will end up having someone who is very imbalanced with wounded feminine energy in a trauma reenactment or karmic cycle type of relationship with somebody who has an equal and opposite magnetic attraction. And we know that creates a very toxic relationship that neither of those individuals deserves. And this I've seen as people are healing themselves. They're healing from these relationships. They have separated out from a toxic dynamic and they're doing great healing work and they're making strides and it's evident and we can see it and their own internal balance is really coming online. The fear that they have about dating again or getting into a relationship that repeats those cycles seems to melt away as they notice the set point of their energetic frequency simply is different. There is a soul aligned sense of trust and safety and release that what will now manifest in their life will not look the same as it once did.